The Bounty Hunters. Slytherin was nice and comfy in one of the planning rooms. His weapons and drones are put away, his armor is off, and nice soft pajamas in the form of a huge soft robe with a gigantic hood on it, all in a dark gray with shimmering bits of tracery and a circuit pattern. A gift from his mother, Latha. No one else was in there, so he'd adjusted the temperature and humidity to match his bedroom and grabbed a bowl of assorted snacks. All right then, let's start putting the data in 3 dimensions. He activates the holo table and downloads the data into it and hums to himself as after a few minutes of typing and tapping away the table, then displays Mordenon hovering above it. A bit more and it updates to show all currently registered towns and communities, and then a little more, and he has tiny lines pointing to where all the Shimmering Sands events took place, with tiny numbers showing the date, as well as the missing people and the amount of vanished metal in tonnage. Okay, Slytherin says as he causes the holomap to zoom in, and he turns it a few times until he finds the oldest incident. Nearly 1,000 years ago, when this world was still a forced primitivism detainment colony, which may even have been before the children even existed. So something happened 934 years ago, and people have been periodically going missing, and metal has been stolen ever since, only really slowing down and stopping when its pattern of hitting areas where there's no groundwater was recognized. 9,812 people taken over the course of 41 different events, spread out over a little more than 800 years. Men and women both, the youngest being 2 years older than me at 18. A grand total of 93,000 tons of various metals taken, from rusting pig iron to family jewelry to advanced weaponry. The last event happened a century ago after the planet's status as a penal colony was rescinded, which, while an interesting data point, isn't likely any kind of smoking gun. He programs the holotable to slowly light up each area of a Shimmering Sands event in sequence from oldest to most recent, and then has the globe run through it 3 times. One time as a sphere hovering over the table, one time as a pair of spheres so he can watch both hemispheres at once, and a final time as an unfolded atlas of the planet as he tries to find a pattern. Maybe numbers in old Nagasha numerals? If you have really, really bad handwriting, he mutters to himself as he shrugs. Probably not. Okay, so these started in the southern hemisphere but are not restricted there. Started in the eastern half of the southern hemisphere, but again didn't stay east any more than in the south. He slithers around the table as he has it run through the highlighting a few more times before turning around and doing it again, slithering the other way. Nothing in either direction. So we can dismiss the idea that this is some really screwy way to pass some kind of message. He then starts poking around the Atlas version and zooms in a bit as he homes in on the first incident. Margald's Pass, a town between 2 mountain ranges, off the green belts, but such a good trading location and sheltered from 90% of the winds, made it a great place to be. Population, 320. The Shimmering Sands swooped in, and 24 hours later, only 17 people were left. After the initial panic, the teenagers managed to band together and send out their fastest letter to call for help. It arrived 3 days later to rescue the children. The adults were never recovered. No metal was ever recovered either, including the components of the vaporators which kept the town hydrated. The children were absorbed into the neighboring community. The majority of them were under 10 years of age. Poor little guys, he mutters as he tries to imagine what it must have been like for those kids way back when. Hopefully I'll get you some kind of justice, even if it is way too damn late. He starts checking the next place over and frowns as he notices something. He then starts checking more and more of the towns and then stops as the pattern he thought he saw breaks. Oh, okay, so nothing to do with the presence of rocks? Just to make sure he scans the rest, and while most communities hit by the Shimmering Sands were on some kind of rock, enough were on the sand that he dismisses it as a relevant data point. Most communities not built on the green belts needed a stable base after all, so of course they'd build on stone where they could. He starts flicking back through the images of Shimmer Sand destroyed communities until he spots something and moves back a bit. A mining town. The equipment gone, the machinery gone. Visible metal in the stone of the open pit mine and HT middle of substantial and oddly smooth gouges. Only refined metals? How and why does it differentiate between the mined and unmined metal? And again, why is it not taking the unmined metal? Or did it take the unmined metal and there was still more beyond the reach of the event's effects. He zooms in a bit and looks at the area where the metal is shining through and nods. The metal in the stone was taken, but the seams went deeper still, which means that shimmering sands have an area of effect. It looks to be 2 meters. Okay, that's useful. He spends another few minutes poring over the image of the destroyed community, then moves on to another, and starts looking for the edges of the shimmerings' power. After a bit, he finds one that has an open garage that was making combination vehicles that used leather interiors. In a shop that had an entire wall stripped away, the tools were gone, the metallic parts were gone, but the leather remained, including some impressions of where tools had laid on them. So, it has a measure of telling what metal is and isn't. It affects all metal within about 2 meters of itself and takes it away. It also does so to living beings over the age of majority. He says before stopping, "Wait a minute." As he starts digging for the next bit of information, the door to the planning room opens and Litha slithers in silently. "Hey, Mom." "Hello, darling. How goes your mystery solving?" "I think I noticed something else," Slithern says. "Something else? What have you noticed already?" "There's a limit to the shimmering sand's range on stealing things. It seems to be 2 meters, but it's also capable of pulling raw ore out of stone as well." "How did you find that out?" Litha asks him, and he eagerly shows her the images of the mining community and the open pit mine with some ore left behind. So whatever this effect is, it's been ravenously devouring metal and people over the proper age. No trace of them left. Now, what does not leave any traces? A removal or an annihilation, and an adept capable of annihilation would have been noticed, which means every part of it was taken somewhere, leading to where and why. The why is easy enough. They're building something and they need workers and materials. The where is the real question. Back up. How can you be sure about what's being done? It's fairly obvious to me at any rate. Grabbing only adults and not children, there are no reports of animals ever being taken. So it's not about food, and metal is a raw material. So wherever things are being taken, it's someplace not easily spotted, not immediately obvious, and endlessly needing new materials. It's still a jump, but it does make sense if the adults were being taken as workers, especially if it's on something too complicated for a child to build. I'll bet it's a spaceship. Somewhere on Mordenon, there is a partially finished spaceship and the corpses of the poor people that have been forced to work on it. Litha says, and she scans things. The image shifts to an atlas view. She then points to the northern pole. There, that's a central location where everything can be gathered. If it's building a ship, it would have been noticed. Not around there. The magnetic interference in the mountains could provide an excellent cover. You know something more about this, don't you? I've been cross-referencing effects that have things vanish heralded by shimmering sands the galaxy over. I've found no less than 20 different patents for a type of harvesting operation that uses a powerful axiom effect, Litha says, and Slithern stares at her. And this hasn't been brought up in any previous investigations. Why? They're not popular, prone to malfunction, and too much moisture will disrupt the delicate web of the effect. What's it called? There are 4 common names, but the most popular appears to be the homing dust method. It's supposed to be used for mining lifeless worlds, though. And how does it work? It's heavily intensive in axiom control and maintenance. Intensive on the level where it's generally easier to source a fleet of drones than find a single adept skilled enough? Yes, very much so, she answers. Then if this theory pans out, then this was started by an adept so dangerously powerful that containing them would be borderline impossible, let alone imprisoning them on a barren world. Let's not split hairs. An annihilation adept, or adepts of the same level, are on the scale where your options are generally assassination or null and nothing else. Containment doesn't happen. Slithern notes before thinking. Do you have 3 of the original prisoners sent to Mordenon were powerful adepts. They weren't defeated in conventional battle. Their families were taken hostage in return for their good behavior and eventual banishment. Litha says, projecting an image of 3 different insectoid women with their features blurred. What's vaguely surprising is that one of them is an Earthani, but even before Emmanuel decided to play in the big leagues, the occasional Earthani decided to break away from the standard timid persona. Their names have been expunged from official records. but the fact that all three were coerced into cooperation and are noted as being extreme risks, even when cooperative, should say all you need to know about their capabilities. I see. So they were at a level where the authorities at the time thought they could be contained on a world away from them. Do you think they endured long enough to manually set off these events, or did they set up a system that did it automatically? It could go either way. There are ways. Ultimately, however, my suggestion is to get you to refocus on what the important part is and where the answers are actually going to be, which is wherever all the people in metal have gone. You find that, the rest will follow. So instead of doing what's never been done, I should focus on doing what's never been done? Slytherin asks with a grin, and Litha lets out a gentle laugh. Something like that, Litha says with a laugh. I brought up homing dust because you're making a few mistakes. Focusing on the means and not the end, which would expose the means. There's also the fact that while the planet was partially isolated, it was in fact not, meaning the rest of the galaxy did affect things. You have to look at what's not only happening on Mordennon, but around it too. He turns back to things and draws it out. He then starts looking up dates for the three redacted prisoners and looks up their homeworlds. No, that's not it. No, but it was a good thought. But again, you're looking at the means, not the ends, Litha says, and Slytherin considers again before looking up exactly what kind of crimes their redacted women had done, and then pauses before thinking again and looks up where all three had lived before being sent to Mordennon. Mountains, of course. Somewhere on this world there is a hollow mountain, or one with a cavity under it. Slytherin states, the mountains are normally uninhabited because the sheer amount of wind tends to bring so much sand with it that they're all worn smooth on this world, and no one builds on them for the fear of getting sandblasted clean through. I've already sent a request towards the Imperial Army to scan the planet for unknown cave systems and hollows. They've sent approval back. Oh, well then what are we waiting for? Well, to start, could you please scan the planet to see if there's anywhere where all the metal and people can be taken to? Me? No, but I can walk you through it. Really? Yes, if you're willing to listen to my instructions. Deal.